What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Fantastic to have you on board. Just want to make sure that you can see me, you can hear me, all that good stuff, and then we'll get right underway. Yeah, cool. All good. We're good to go. Brilliant. So what I want to dive into today is simply being able to give you some help around where you feel like you're most stuck in your nutrition, your energy, your gut health, whatever that might be. To really allow you to move forward, to really feel like if you feel like you're stuck, you feel like your body's not playing ball, I simply want to give you a couple of tips on what might be holding you back in this time. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment below, chuck them in, and I'll happily get to them. I've got a couple of things I want to dive into as being common roadblocks, common problems that people are running into around trying to optimize their recovery, optimize their body to actually play ball, to actually feel like they can get their body working with them rather than against them. And a lot of that, like I mentioned, we're just trying to make it simple. There's so many contradicting beliefs around how you should be eating, how you should be working out, and all these things, when really what I want to do today is just simplify that process. Simplicity is sophistication. And with that, we'll get straight into it. So if you do have any questions, if you've got any things we want to ask, we'll dive right in. Hey, Vicky, great to have you here. And everyone else on the call, awesome. So I'm going to start with a couple of problems. I'm going to start with a couple of things that people I feel get most stuck on, and hopefully that's going to be really helpful for you all. And then I've got a couple of questions that are written down that have people posted up in the group that we'll dive into. Okay, cool. So if there are anything else you want to check in, simply chuck them below and we'll get straight into it. Okay. So what I want to do is go through a quick understanding of what's really holding back your energy and your recovery, what's really getting in the way of you being able to move forward. And simply what I want to start with is this awareness around being able to focus on the down, not the up. And what I mean by that is this awareness to be your best. Your awareness to get more performance out of your body is directly correlated with your ability to calm down, to your ability to be able to get off the gas and not do as much. Okay, and that's going to sound really contradicting because every coach is supposedly supposed to be motivating. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring up my comments on here so I can see what you're saying. Great. Yeah, so the big one here is trying to make sure that we can get this awareness around what's really happening or why your body's not playing ball. So your ability to perform is directly correlated with your ability to rest, your ability to calm down and nourish the body, get the stuff working. Okay, so I'm going to dive into these recovery supplements, dive into optimal recovery rather than the stimulants and pre-workouts and caffeine that is constantly bombarding your morning, which is ultimately making it worse for tomorrow morning. Okay, so what I'm talking about here is this awareness around your circadian rhythm, your awareness around how your body interplays with the light exposure you're getting. You'll notice I'm wearing blue light blocking glasses. That's a mouthful. My awareness to make sure I'm getting some sort of natural light, I'm getting some sort of movement daily, and ultimately looking to optimize my sleep. If I can improve the way I sleep, I can get to bed without a racing mind, I can stay asleep for at least 7 hours, and I can wake up with good energy, then I know that everything else that I do on top of that is going to improve. So if you are getting less than 7 hours of sleep, you are waking up a couple of times during the night. Yes, it's normal, but it's not optimal. It's not something you should be doing. So going into this and getting an awareness as to why you're waking up is something that we dive into a lot with our clients and really dive into what that real issue is. But to give you a real understanding of what it may be, is this awareness around glucose regulation. So what are you having in that last meal of the day? That's all we need to know. So if we're waking up 1 to 3 hours into the night, we can start to get an understanding that potentially could be to do with our body waking us up because our glucose levels are too low. So choices around that last meal can be a consideration. Hey Sarah, great to have you on board. Adam, Ash, fantastic. And then we're starting to look deeper into the night. And if we're waking up towards that 4 to 5, 6 hours in, we're going to be looking more towards maybe an oxidative stress. Maybe we're going to look more towards the liver. And this really is a massive part that people misunderstand, because the liver is a really, really massive, has a really important function in the body, which is this detoxification. And food itself is the biggest toxin that we consume. Okay, so this awareness around whole foods, this awareness around better foods that we eat, ultimately is going to improve the way our body functions together. And if the better it functions, the better we're going to find our ability to recover, to break down nutrients and have good energy, recover from training, have better motivation to really want to train, all the rest. Okay, so diving deeper into the sleep component, let me know if you are watching this, if sleep is an issue for you. Let me know if you've got any questions around sleep, because this is certainly an area that most people really don't put enough emphasis on, and is what holds them back the most. Hey Jamie, great to have you on board. From improving ultimately their energy, ultimately their body, and real purpose, their ability to show up as their best self. And this is something I went through with Jamie earlier today, which I absolutely resonate with 100%, is the ability to show up as your best self because you're putting these in place. So sleep has to be that starting point, that ability to really allow you to be able to go to sleep without that racing mind, the ability to calm down, be able to switch off from work or for whatever else is going on in your day, is going to be a really, really big starting point, okay? The other part to that is diving into supplements, and Ash, you've chucked up a couple of things around zinc and greens and all the rest, but my top two that I'm going to suggest for improved recovery, improved sleep, is going to be vitamin C and magnesium. They're always going to be your starting two. So getting that ability to start around slowing things down. So cortisol being high at the end of the day is a real problem. So if you find you're stressed out, or you train later in the day, whatever that might be, finding some way to bring and calm the nervous system down is probably going to be best off through a mindfulness practice of just maybe that be a walk, maybe that even be a meditation practice. What are you doing to calm down? Maybe it's just simply being present with your partner, your family, or reading a book. Something to just really calm that nervous system down is going to be massively beneficial to better quality sleep. Okay, so rather than that screen time, rather than obviously this may be 6, 7 p.m. for some of you, but after this, giving yourself that hour or two before bed to calm the nervous system down will make a big difference. Hey Vicky, you got a question here, and now I believe you just said that you've been doing some gut programs lately, and I hope this is something that is diving into the toxicity side of things, because if you're diving into the gut, I really hope you are diving into toxicity. If you are having trouble staying asleep, I'm not going to say the liver is the only issue, but this would be certainly something that I hope that whatever program you're doing is diving into it. It's certainly one area that, you know, with and Cherie dives into this incredibly. She's our nutritionist on board that is absolutely gun with this stuff. And even just the toxin protocol, the stuff we do to do a full liver detox. It's not shakes and all these fancy pills. It's learning how to remove these toxins in the body. And that alone, we've seen people drop 5-10 kilos just because we're holding on to all this extra stuff. And because a lot of these toxins are held in the fat, it's holding on to all this extra storage. So toxicity, both from body fat and really good quality sleep, is going to have a massive difference. So I think this awareness, just bringing more awareness to what toxins are doing in the body is really, really important. Okay. Can I just double check that you're seeing my screen? Are you seeing the program? Oh, it is. Good. Okay, it is up. Awesome. So hope that helps. I hope that gives us a bit of awareness around what's happening with the toxins, with the sleep. I just didn't think I was seeing that screen. Perfect. So let's focus on the stimulants. One thing we really look at around the caffeine is simply making sure that it's not bad by any means, but knowing when we have it in the day and why we have it is going to make a big difference. And if you're not taking some time to remove it from your program, even for a week, makes such a massive difference, just to bring the sensitivity up like anything else, right? If you have an overexposure to sugars, oh, fantastic. You can all see my screen. That's great. I just thought I couldn't see it on mine. So this ability to be overstimulated, right, is going to be an issue. If we have too much sugar, we're going to find things less sweet and sweet, so we're going to have more sweet stuff. And that's something that we've all these areas, if you're overexposed, it's going to make a real issue. I hope that all makes sense. Hope that gives you a bit of an understanding. So this is going to give you a bit of awareness on what I really build, and Cherie and I have built out a fantastic first phase that we use with our clients. And really, I'm giving you an insight into this right now, is very much this idea of the stress component is what's holding you back so much, okay? There's no point looking at calories and macros and whatever else if we don't get this awareness around what's happening with your stress base. So are you able to do, it doesn't have to be a full 30-minute yoga practice and meditation followed by that, and then go sit on a mountain and journal for the day, but it does need to be something to slow things down and just be able to be mindful of what's going on internally. So taking the time to bring this awareness to how you're feeling, what's getting caught up that's causing you to feel anxious or whatever else. And whatever way works for you, is it walking it off and going for a quick stroll without technology with you? Is it being able to sit down and really focus in on your breath? Or is it being able to write things down? I think writing things down, we did a big workshop on this the other day, around how much it brings in your productivity, this mental chatter, all sorts of things. Diving into that further, something like scheduling. Let me know from the people watching, how many of you schedule, how many people write things down, and do you find that important in your day? Because that's something I really am pushing a lot. I'm really taking some time to dive deep into this at the moment, because it's a fantastic stress reliever, or ability to just be aware of what's going on in your head. And when we store everything up in our brain and we don't start looking at what's really going on, this can be a real challenge. So let me know if scheduling for you is something you dive into a lot. And then your environment. And this is something that I think you all need to be aware of. And it's always flung around you, the 5 people you spend your time around all the rest. But being able to be picky with your time and how you spend that, because spending time helping people fills the soul. Spending time learning from people allows you to develop. Spending time at people on the same level as you doesn't really do a huge amount. So there's a difference between comfort and being able to be driven to be more. And if you feel like you're trying to get out of a rut with your training, but you're surrounding yourself with people that are drinking every weekend, needing that Friday night binge on pizzas and beer and whatever else, what's that doing to your constant challenge and your constant, what would the word be, sort of, you're constantly trying to keep yourself out, like keep yourself out of it. You're dragging yourself down the whole time, or trying to think that just the pressure itself would be really, really helpful. So try to make sure that you're aware of this environment. It completely has its ability to pick you up and get you out of these hard times, or constantly feel like it's pulling you back in. So environment is crucial. Having that direction, having that the people around you that feel like they're on the same direction is certainly something we want to dive into, okay? I'll just dive into a couple of questions here if you do have anything else. So if you do want to dive in, I'm going to continue for sure, but Paula, what did you say? I sleep for 2 hours, then wake up every 2 hours, taking magnesium milate, okay, and have been for approximately 8 months. Yes, Paula, so obviously for you, I know that you've done a lot of competitions and stuff in the past, so I'd love to know a little deeper into maybe blood panels and knowing what's happening. But like I said, if you're waking up every 2 hours, that's a serious issue, and you're going to be fighting against your body a lot, right? So start with an awareness around what's happening in your last meal. I know in the fitness space, having carbs after 6 seems to be this weird issue, and that's something that I think is holding people back so much more than it's helping them. So carbohydrate has a really good ability to calm the nervous system down, to really stop this stuff, right? So if you can maybe look at what you're having in the last meal. I'm going to assume you're not having carbs in that last meal, and this is why your body's waking you up, or because I know you're aware of your health. So you're probably not looking at something that's very high glycemic, right? It's not like you're having a whole lollies before dinner or after dinner. So I would suggest that you would look at this nutrition timing for you, knowing that you've been doing this stuff for a while. So what are you having for breakfast? If you're doing more carbohydrate in the morning, something that unless you're under, say, 20% body fat for a female, this might be something that you could look at doing a bit more fats in the morning to be able to support these hormones, these fat burning hormones, to allow better energy during the day. But what that also does is allow a little bit more metabolic flexibility, with this ability to use fats during the day. So this ability to use ketones as your energy source rather than carbohydrate the whole way through the day, right? Everybody has their toast or their cereal or their oats in the morning, but their energy is like this all day. Okay, so the first suggestion would be simply maybe a bit more fats in the morning. And then with that gives us a bit more leeway with what we have in the afternoon. So obviously all of this has a balancing out, right? That's why I'm starting with breakfast. But maybe a suggestion for you, Paula, would be try add in whatever suits for you. Obviously, if something bloats, then don't use it. But something along the lines of kumara or sweet potato if you're in the States, or just simply white potato would be a fantastic starting point to have in that last meal. I don't know what your carbohydrate amount is for the day if you track that. But if you could start off with 100, 200 grams for you would be fantastic. And I want to, because if you're waking up every 2 hours of sleep and you're not getting 6 hours of quality sleep in the night, your insulin sensitivity drops by over 60% by itself, okay? So for all of you watching this call, let that sink in. If you're not getting 6 hours of uninterrupted quality sleep in a row, your insulin sensitivity by itself drops by 60%, roughly, which is itself going to make a drastic difference in your ability to utilize food and not just store it. So this is where you get to that state where you look at a cookie and you put on weight, okay? And that's not a good state to be in, because you're constantly fighting against your body. So yes, this is why we start with sleep and this ability to improve recovery, because if you're not taking that time to, or taking the necessary steps to improve that sleep, no amount of exercise is going to help. So I hope that's helpful, Paul. I hope that, if that doesn't get better, please reach out. I'd love to dive in a bit more, because yeah, like you said, it's been going on for 8 months. So start there. Vicky, fantastic to know scheduling helps. Do you use that in a productivity setting, or do you use that simply for your mindset and ability to stop the mental chatter? Let me know. Wait. Yeah, cool, Mark. So that's obviously what we're going to go through here. And the big part that we're trying to keep our focus on today is this understanding around looking at the bigger picture, looking holistically at what's happening with your body. Because if you're not sleeping properly, which is our prime mover we're talking about today, you're not looking at the colors and nutrients that you're having in your food, it's simply just calories and restricting things, that's going to make a huge difference. Okay, so and this is obviously a couple of people were talking about this around the fat loss plateau that you're in, and if you feel like you're stuck in this plateau, you feel like you're not able to continue dropping weight, then this is likely where you're stuck. And this is obviously where we work with a lot of people that have done diet after diet after diet, and it no longer works. And it's getting this awareness around looking at more than just those calories, because calories can be a great metric if we're looking at getting on stage, we're looking to do a photo shoot, or those real last stages of getting in shape. But it's certainly not something I focus on year round with any client, regardless of how amazing athletically they are. It's really, if anything, it's going to inhibit their ability to stay in great shape and to really, really feel good, because they're constantly stressed and worried about that extra 200 calories that they ate rather than simply enjoying the food. And I think that in itself is something that can be really, really empowering, and that ability to just go a little deeper into how do I feel? How do I feel off this food? What are these foods really helping me towards my goal or not? So, Mark, I'd love to get on a call with you. I saw you were looking through the program now, and hopefully you've seen the R4 training that we literally go through this whole system. But if there's something you've been stuck on for a while, this is something we need to dive into a little bit more. Paula. Yeah, fantastic, Paula. Yeah, it was only an assumption, but especially with competitive ladies like you and diving into this full fitness space, it's something I think is really wrong, something that I think has been an issue for a while, and as well as all the supplements and everything that people are trying to calm the nervous system down. When you think of sleep being your biggest superpower, your food being your biggest superpower, which improves your sleep, is really going to make the game so much easier. So definitely start there. Ash, yeah, great book. I haven't read the book, but I know her stuff. And really what we're doing is trying to go a little deeper than her. I know her stuff is great on menopause, but just giving a little more action steps on what those are. I think the mindfulness in practice, I think, is going to be really useful, right? So definitely start there. Cool. I hope that was helpful. I just want to make sure I answered a couple of questions as they were coming through, so I didn't get too lost behind. So as just a little recap on that, we've got our awareness around looking at focusing on the sleep, focusing on the rest. Mark, I hope that helps. So improving your ability to calm down, focus on improving your sleep. And if your sleep is an issue, that is definitely something we need to look at. Vicky, we're looking at the toxicity in the body, looking at how we can improve the liver function. And ultimately, this is going to be your biggest ability to continue to progress, continue to improve your energy. Now, the last thing I want to focus on, and this is where the mindset stuff comes back in, and looking at those bigger pictures, and like I said before, this empowering thoughts, looking at these things that can really help you move forward, is you don't have to, you want to, okay? And this is something I've been having some incredible conversations with clients and people coming on phone calls this week, which is this awareness around knowing that this plays into the bigger picture. It plays into how you want to show up as your best self. You know that if you can take that time to really improve your sleep, improve your workouts, really feel like you can improve the foods you eat and how you feel on those foods, you show up as your best self. You're proud of that person you see in the mirror, and you don't feel like your body's working against you. So I just wanted to touch that in before I dive into some more questions, is this awareness that it's a choice you have, and it's certainly not something that you should be restricting. It shouldn't be something that you're constantly pulling yourself down with. I can't eat that because I feel this way, or I need to go do exercise afterwards because I had a cake. I think that's ridiculous, because we're looking at the bigger picture of how your body really functions. And if you can start to get this awareness around not just what you eat in that day and you have to burn it in that day, it's really the process of a week. We need a certain amount of sleep cycles to function. There's typically 5 in a night that we're trying to get through. It's either 90 up to 120 minutes it takes to get through a full sleep cycle. So Paula, like you said, if you're only getting 2 hours sleep, you may be getting just into a good round and then you're out of it again and you have to restart again. And because you're not getting deeper and deeper sleep, which is what we're getting if we have a solid 7 hours in a row, we're never really getting to those really deep levels of restorative rest at the mind level and both physical. So that's why we start on the rest. That's why we start on, with all you amazing humans that are high performers, you want to get the most out of your day, or you're just showing up for everyone else. It's that ability to step back and just put those foundations in place so you don't burn out. You don't feel like you're doing too much and you can't take that time to set up for yourself. So that is really the big focus I want to put across today. And I think that's something that really allows it to take some time to bring in some respect for your own time, really, is where I'm going with that one. Yeah, 100%. Meditation and all that, you know, the more studies that come out, the more that we dive in. Mindfulness in itself is such a science. And, you know, I'm actually accredited in this stuff. I did a full 2.5 day workshop not long ago, and I've done a couple of others as well. And it's something we just dive deeper and deeper into. It's if you're trying to nutrition plan and they're not taking into account some sort of stress, it's not a nutrition plan. I think that's a really, really big part. Okay. Ash, coming back to questions about greens, I think they're fantastic. A lot of nutrients that is missing in foods these days from different farming practices and trying to produce more and more. I think we typically are low on certain nutrients, particularly the zinc and magnesium. So starting with the daily greens, I think it's really, really important. I actually put that much higher than a simple multivitamin. Those things I think have got too much of the things you don't need and not enough of the things you do. So greens is a really good start. As opposed, coming back to your zinc dosing, how much is the right amount? Obviously, this is very dependent on body weight and how much is coming in. But like I said, with the calories and the macros and all the rest, right? It doesn't matter what the calories are if you don't know what you're absorbing, what's actually happening at a deeper level. So with the zinc, I'd certainly suggest a zinc picolinate is a really great start. It just means it's slightly better absorbed, slightly more utilized. And then you can probably start with a really low dose. So something around 20 milligrams is certainly something I'd work on. But if you want to know exactly what's going to be the optimal level for you, which I love that you're asking, it would be making sure we look at your blood work and making sure we're covering those levels for sure. But you'd certainly see an increase there. I have done some higher protocols depending on the hormonal imbalances. Zinc has a really great effect against the aromatizing of estrogen. So that can be really interesting as well. But for a normal dose, zinc is, for male and female, zinc is a fantastic supplement I'd certainly have on board. Coming back to Paula, I believe you asked about the magnesium. I'd actually suggest you go a glycinate, but anything starting with an ATE is usually better. As soon as you get the blends and the oxides, that's certainly more of an issue. So glycinate would be my suggestion overall. No supplements, I don't affiliate with anyone, but certainly starting there would be a great start. What else do we have here? Gaining muscles. Paula, we'll come back to you. Gaining muscles for females, and how many days a week should you train? Yeah, so my biggest response will always be it depends, but the how many days a week should you train is dependent on what you're currently doing, right? So if you're only doing 3 days a week, I know you're not, but if you're only doing 3 days a week and you go to 4, then there's an increase in response. We should see an improvement there, okay? Mind you, if you're doing 6, 7 sessions a week and you're not seeing a response, I would suggest doing more is certainly not what we're looking for, because as we went through at the start of this session would be a case of looking at your ability to recover, your ability to let your body respond. And if you're not sleeping, you're not going to build muscle, you're not going to improve body fat. So that would certainly be my starting point. And overall, especially with people over 40, my big focus has always been, how can I improve their ability to recover and allow their body to work with them? Because we're working harder and harder and harder, and our body's just saying no, no, no. So what can we do to improve all these other things in the background, really build this foundation up properly, and then things start really working for you, and that's quite fun. So how many days a week should you train? My suggestion for most people would be 4 to 5 days of really feeling like you're getting a good effort in with your training, and then a daily walk, making sure you're getting in a 20 to 30 minute walk every day. Probably more for a mindset level, but as you know, that stress comes back to things a lot. So definitely add that in. And then as for the gaining muscle part, obviously things might be a bit more of a challenge now than usual, but that's fantastic because it starts to give you a bit of awareness around the different ways you can train. Because if all you've been doing is slinging weights around and pushing heavy, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but if this is something that is an issue, look at all the other variables you can change, right? So what I'm doing with my workouts at home is putting 2, 3, 4 exercises in a row and really circuit training the idea so that we can improve our ability to create more tension in muscle. So we're slowing things down, spending more time in a certain range. So pausing where it's most difficult, or maybe by putting those 3 or 4 exercises in, I'm accumulating a lot more lactic acid in a session. So lactic acid in itself, by that, is going to increase growth hormone, is going to increase our fat burning ability through the oxidation of the body and being able to burn through more carbohydrate. So that effect in itself, not just from the fat burning, but also the increase in growth hormone, is going to allow us to build more muscle. So I think that covers part of your response, as your ability to build muscle comes down to the limitations we have at the moment would be, look at the other variables you have at play rather than simply doing more volume or more weights, right? Or more weight. Because right now, for usual, most people working so hard that this is all they're doing. They're trying to do that more linear fashion, and eventually things are going to break. Your form's going to throw off. Your joints are going to hurt. Whatever else, right? So look at those other variables you can change. Look at improving your movement, improving that tension ability, and that itself is going to make a big difference. Coming back to the certain muscle groups that you had in that question, you had a lot in that question. If you feel like there's certain muscle groups that are lagging, you don't feel like they're responding, they're not growing the same way, then never look at doing more weight, never looking at doing more work, because that does not help you. If a muscle is weak, doing more work will never help. So what you've got to start with is this ability to improve the way you train that muscle, okay? And I'm only going to use chest as an example because it's the easiest thing for you to see. So if we have a chest, its insertion is in our humerus or upper arm, and then origin at a pec, right? So sternal fiber, this is where we're putting it together. So all we have is this range to work through, okay? Now, if we're doing a bench press and all we're doing is everything's moving, okay? We're now using our triceps, shoulders, and lats, whatever else, okay? So our ability to contract that muscle is pretty poor because now we're using our shoulders, our triceps, and all those other muscles to distribute that load, okay? So doing more and more work is only going to make it easier for you to be more efficient and put more shit in other muscles. So I think just take that into account because that really is important to know when you feel like a muscle's not responding the way it should, okay? So learn to stabilize, learn to pull the scapula back up, push the chest nice and tall, make sure we're driving the chest across the body and getting those 2 points coming together. For example, so if you feel that the shoulders aren't growing, you don't feel like you can get a bit more shape through the side, then our ability to stabilize our scap, not with our lats, but with our lower traps to keep things stable will make a big difference because we're over dominating with your upper traps. I think we went over this with you too, Ash. With glutes, same thing. It's the prime mover is that hip extension. So are you using your hamstrings? Are you using your lower back? Everybody's thinking about bending so far over when simply we should be thinking about pushing the hips back, pushing the hips forward. Something like bands to have your glutes to shove into it can make a fantastic difference. There's an awareness around quality of movement, and we dive into this a ton, so if you feel like you struggle with that, we can certainly dive into that more. But it's simply this awareness around if you feel like a muscle's not responding or you don't feel like your body's responding, it's never doing more work, it's never working harder because the person that's asking is already working so hard. So it's improvement of quality, improvement of the movement that's really going to make a big difference there, okay? Cool, next one. Training fasted. Who asked this one? Mick, yeah, that's one. So big thing I want to go into around training fasted is that it's not going to be selective of whether it's muscle or fat, okay? It's going to break down both. So if all you want to do is get smaller, who I don't know who wants to do that, it'll burn down both, okay? So if you're training in that state, I'm going to recommend that you potentially don't, because what you're doing is breaking down probably more muscle tissue than actual glucose. So long term, you get weaker and probably not, your metabolism wouldn't be as high, your metabolic rate isn't high because you now have less muscle tissue, your BMI and overall is actually lower. So I would suggest training fasted is probably not the best idea unless you've got muscle to burn, which good on you if you do, but that's probably not for most people. So my ability to preserve muscle tissue, regardless of what the goal is, okay, keeping muscle tissue on, whether you're a teacher, a bodybuilder, or anything in between, like really knowing that you can hold on to muscle, especially in your 40s, 50s and beyond, is going to be one of the biggest things that I put to longevity, to stay healthy, fit, and energetic long term. Because if you don't have a good amount of muscle mass, it's a really, really good sign. Or if you feel like muscle mass is starting to decline really quickly, it's a good sign that your health is starting to decline quickly. As we get older, it's harder and harder to keep this high protein synthesis, to keep muscle tissue on, let alone grow it. So my biggest goal would be to improve your ability to maintain that muscle, to keep that metabolism, that basic metabolic rate high, so that we can burn more fat at rest without doing all this extra work. Okay, so that's certainly a starting point. So ideally, I would not train fasted. I don't have anything against fasting. If you do feel like you're low stress, you do feel like you're chilled out, chucking it in every now and then, certainly not on an everyday basis. I don't think that's smart, but cyclical, depending on the goal, this is going to be very dependent, but cyclical can be really useful if we're in a low stress state. If we're a high stress person, we're simply using the excuse that we don't have time for breakfast, then bullshit. Try focus on getting up 20 minutes earlier, improve your morning routine, bring your stress down, and prioritize your day. Simple as that. So that would be my two suggestions. Don't train fasted because it's not going to be selective whether it's fat or muscle, and keeping more muscle is going to improve your metabolic rate and ultimately be able to keep that body fat down, keep your energy high. But if you are low stress, then certainly a great start. Cool. That's all the questions I had for you, team. I hope that's really helpful. I hope that covered a couple of things for you. If there's nothing else, let me know. I'll stay around for a little bit longer if there's anything else that you wanted me to touch on. please fire away. Awesome, Vicky. Great to hear you enjoyed it. That's all I had for today. But I obviously, with the program you're doing, let me know how you're going with the toxicity stuff. More than happy to go over this with you on a call, and just dive a little deeper. As you know, obviously this is really big on just making sure that we're not working harder and harder. We all know we're doing so much work. We're putting in all these things, and whether it be an athletic path or simply a determination to stay in great shape. I know you're all there. I know you're all doing the work. So if we can do anything to optimize that foundation and make things really work for you, really make sure you're all working in the right direction, that's really what I'm after, okay? So have an amazing night, everyone, team. I hope that's really helpful for you, and we'll certainly do this again next week. So Ash, you can keep those questions banking up, and we can go through them again next week. Have an amazing night, everyone, team, and please reach out if you have any questions. I'd love to talk to you. Bye.